Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special edition of HR Mentorship Series. Today, we are going to be having a book review, and the title of the book is Digital HR. Digital HR, a critical management approach to the digitalization of organization. The authors of the book are Amelia Manuti and Pascal David De Palma. Of course, in the light of this, we have also decided that if it took two people to write that book, it must take two people to review it. So today we're excited to have our co-discussant for today, our ever consistent, reliable, dependable, delectable Ezine Obiora, who is the Chief Human Resources and Operations Officer with Femo Vision, and also Shoemimo Omo Bola Joko, who looks a reality as she looks in that flyer. She's the HR manager of Trino Studios. She has also facilitated for us in the past, at some of our webinars. A pleasure having both ladies here. On a lighter note, Ezine threw a challenge to the guys to come and review. They are still trying to, take up the challenge. But maybe the timing of the challenge and the book has had made it even more challenging. But nevertheless, it's my privilege and pleasure to hand over the virtual lecture to our facilitators of the day. Over to you, Ezine.
Thank you, Yemi. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our book review for the month of March. And yes, so thank you, Yemi, for reminding me of that challenge. I'm going to take it up with all the men in our group, because I'm putting it as a challenge to you guys. The book review for April, there should be at least one man in that discussion. Please, it's a challenge to you. Anyway, welcome once again to our review, and permit me to take a deep breath for this book, because this book, like someone said, this book, it gets as it be. To be honest, I would say it's a peculiar, very interestingly peculiar book. I was telling Yemi earlier on that the reviews did not come in as much as we saw in the previous book, and I honestly don't blame anyone. What I would say is, initially, I'll be honest with you guys, let's not look at it like I've read the book, oh fantastic, I had a smooth sailing. Not true. I remember I even mentioned it in the group that at a point it reminded me of this course I took in university where it just was not sinking, nothing was coming in, and we're close to exam, and we're like, all of us were frustrated. All of us, even those of us that were like the seemingly exicos of the group, were like, it was not getting in. I had to go to Lagoon Front to go and put my legs in, and that was when it eventually started, sinking in. So with this book, yeah, I think because the book is it looks like a research paper. It is actually a research, there's some research. You can see some research in the book. So maybe that's what made it complex. It did seem complex, but I'll tell you, for those of you that did not finish the book, it's actually like I was telling Yemi and Showemi more earlier on, it just gave me a lesson of perseverance, because as soon as I was able to get past the first chapter, because at first when I started with the book, when I got to the first chapter, I was like, what is this? Is it the typos? Is it the way the thing was constructed? I was like, what exactly is this? But I put the book down for a while, but then I was like, you know what? Because of the accountability I have to this group and to myself, I have to finish this book. And interestingly, the moment I was able to overcome chapter 1 and get into chapter 2, oh my, it was amazing. Like I was telling Yemi that by chapter 5, I didn't want to drop the book. It was so interesting, and I could not reconcile chapter 1 with the rest of the book. I was like, okay, well, 2 people wrote the book. My theory is that maybe somebody wrote the first chapter and someone else wrote the rest, but hey, you didn't hear it from me. Anyway, let's jump right into the review of the book. Like I did in the last review, I also took some salient points from other people's reviews, and I'm going to incorporate it into mine. But I'll start with chapter 1. So chapter 1, which was the one that seemed very hard to pass through. I also, what I like about this book was that, you know, if you read the other two books, the two books we did, the one in January and the one in February, you could see that there's lots of intertwining. So there was a line you could relate, oh, I saw this in this book, I saw this in this one. So, you know, that's why it's good for us to just read, because at the end of the day, everybody is saying the same thing, but from different perspectives. So you will agree with me that it has been established that the acquisition of high value talent increases the competitive advantage of any organization. If you have high value talent, you know, you're bound to stand the test of time. Now, in this book, a professor of organizational behavior called Jeremy Pfeiffer suggested that a company could gain more competitive advantage by treating its employees as its most valued resource, you know, which brings forth what you call the people-based approach, you know, as opposed to previous ways, you know. Maybe people, you know, they would see people as they are a separate entity, you know. But this professor says, you know, for a company to be successful long-term, you know, you would need to see your people as your most valued resource. And I'll add here that there were a lot of myths that were challenged in this book, or a number of myths that were challenged in this book. And you could see that there was research done to either challenge or substantiate the myths. And one of the myths this professor challenged was the myth of cost cutting. And he said that cost cutting, he challenged it. He said cost cutting is not the only way to increase profitability. And, you know, we see it even in government. We see where, you know, there are, you know, people are focusing on the wrong things, you know, where there are certain things that you need to touch, you know, to make sure that, you know, costs are reduced, but that, you know, the company functions well. But maybe cost cutting seems to be the low hanging fruit. But this professor says, no, you know, this is not the case. He said, if you do that, you know, there's a risk of reduced employee engagement because people will feel threatened. Because once you talk about downsizing, you know, people are threatened, like, oh, I don't have any more job security, so why should I be giving my all to this company? Because besides, anyway, you're going to let me go, right? And so he said to increase profitability through people, he emphasized on more information sharing and more job security, giving people a sense of security in their job. And I will agree with this, because even in companies I've worked, you know, you will find that people are always talking about, oh, they feel like management hoards information, you know, they don't get to hear. So they don't feel like they're part of the organization. But in an organization where if there's lots of information communication, you feel like, you know, you are a stakeholder. And I'll give another example of a place I worked that I don't want to say it was information overload, but, you know, you would have the CEO sending out emails to us. He will have town hall meetings, virtual, physical, you know, everything that was happening, we were kept, you know, abreast of things along the way. So you would feel there was a part ownership, you know, when you're talking like about your company, you're like, yeah, this is my company, you're proud, you know, because anybody that talks to you outside, you know, you can answer certain questions, you're not in the dark. And that's what this professor is trying to put forth, right? And he debated the issue about job security being a thing of the past, right? But I disagree with him. I think that it still is. I mean, I think that there is no job security. That's my personal opinion, because I mean, look at what's going on in, you know, around us. You see lots of jobs being cut, you know, in the tech world, especially. So my personal opinion is that really there isn't any job security. However, as much as you're in an organization, you know that, yes, you may not be there forever, but then you can still have a level of commitment to that job, right? If you feel like you're a part of the company, if you feel like you're a stakeholder in the company. And I think that is what the professor was trying to put forth. And he also talks about communication. He said it's very important, which is what I've talked about. I've given an example. It's important for management to communicate with, you know, its people, and for management's strategy to align with business processes. There has to be buying from the employees. And this is only done if the strategy is properly communicated. I'll give another example. I remember earlier on in my career, I used to hear a lot of strategy, and it sounded like it was a big word. Hey, strategies for the big guys, you know, what, I don't know what strategy is. We just used to like have it as one of those big words, strategy, mission, vision, and all that. Until I started working somewhere and we decided that, look, because it was becoming an issue, you know, people didn't understand what strategy was. It wasn't until we decided to break it down, you know, to the how should I say, the lowest cadre of the worker in the organization. So to the receptionist, we'll go to the person and say, okay, this is what the mission, this is what the vision of the company is, this is what the company intends to achieve for this year. Because what we did was we always had a strategy. We had a strategy every 2 years. Every 2 years we had a strategy that we're all working towards. And you would know, if you're a HR, you know how you tie into that strategy. If you're in a supply chain, you know how to tie in strategy. And then we had to make sure that even the person, like I said, as locator, as the receptionist, will know how their job ties into the strategy. So that's what the professor is saying, that, you need to clearly communicate your strategy, what you intend to achieve as a company to your people, so that your people, even whoever it is, can understand it in plain terms and can interpret it and know where they fit in to the strategy. So you don't see the strategy as, oh, it's something for management. No, I, as a receptionist, I'm the face of the company. How do I receive people? I'm the face, I'm the one that they first of all see. So depending on how I receive people, that's what would draw people in. If someone comes for an interview, how am I receptive to that person? That gives the employee brand, so all those things tie in, and that's practically what this professor is saying. And then he also talks about, companies shedding their traditional ways of work, right? With the advent of digitization, the traditional ways of work, traditional models, HR practices are being changed because of digitization, right? And it has also changed career paths. So you see now, like before, people will sit in a career for like 10, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, and they're waiting for that wall clock, right? To say, oh, you've done well and everything. But now it's not linear like that. You have people moving on a level, on a linear path, instead of horizontal or vertical or whatever, So things have really changed with digitization. Now, he also talks about the old method of seeing, and which is what I talked about earlier, of seeing people and organization as separate entities. You cannot see people and the organization as separate entities. They are one and the same, right? And he replaced it with a perspective, which he talked about, called relational constructivism, right? And it says that people and organizations are interrelated, where organizations are just simply networks of relationships where people play a major role. And I'll go to some of the comments that some people made regarding this. I remember that Irene talked about this, and she talked about how relational constructivism was a strong tool that addresses both internal and external influences on how people create meaning. People want to work in a place where they can find meaning to what they do, where they can have an identity. Because come on, you spend so much time at work. So how would you be working in a place where there's no meaning? Are you just getting up and working like a zombie to earn a salary? I think it has gone past that. And we're going to talk about that in chapter 2. So that's what this chapter was talking about, how the organization needs to provide an environment where people can find meaning in what they do. And then for that to happen, people have to feel like they're valued. They have to feel that their voice is heard. There has to be a level of commitment and cooperation between the employees and employers, right? And for this relationship to flourish, these are Irene's words, the both sides have to feel like, there's a balance in their relation, and that their contribution is fair, their contribution is noted, their contribution is of value, right? And when there is information sharing, that's when you see that. And I gave an example. I said where I worked, because of the information or communication we had, like, you would open, there's newsletter, there's emails, there's intranet, everything. You could tell what was going on. So you felt like you were a part of the company. That's increased, and that upped the levels of employee engagement. So it is important that we keep an open, continuous dialogue with every member of our team, so that you don't assume, or you're in the dark about any frustrations or misunderstandings that people have. You can easily notice and deal with them before they escalate into something serious. And I remember that Temi also talked about people and the organization being the same side of the coin and not separate actors. I really liked that statement. So yes, people and the organization, they're intertwined. It's a relationship. It's a relationship it's a network of relationships, and we're going to delve further into that. You'll see how that plays out in further chapters. And she said that there was a consensus that some people, some organizations have failed in their attempts to keep people engaged because they see people experience as a byproduct of the organization. It's something by the side, it's not a major thing. We'll come to that later. But an organization that seeks to be successful long-term must create a thriving environment for people to derive, like I said, meaning and identity in the workplace. That is why a people-based approach is the way to go. And she also said something that really, spoke to me. She said, employee engagement does not come from the blues. It's something that's built into the DNA of the company. It's culture. And that culture, how is culture built? It's from these little practices that we put together, that forms the thread of the culture of the company, So, and it also comes from adopting a people-based approach, a people management practices that enables people attach positive meaning to their experience within the organization. And she said a line that was really, that really stood out. She said, help your people build a great life and they will help you build great companies. And then talking about employee engagement, there's a misconception that people have that employee engagement has to cost money. It doesn't have to cost money. And we all, agreed with that. There's certain things you can do that you don't necessarily have to spend money. Things as easy as recognition, right? I remember when at a point somewhere I worked, we had to do like a kudos board, right? You just go and appreciate people. Or when we had meetings, we had management meetings every month, the executives would mention, so each HOD will bring out someone's name that they want to recognize. And so that helped to give not just recognition, and it gave the person further visibility, because those executive meetings that we were having were international executive meetings. So from each office, you would bring, or from each office, each HOD will submit someone who they want to recognize for their contribution to the work. And we always made it seem, we put it out in such a way that it wasn't managers, not just managers that were responsible for certain successes. No, we would call team members. So you got visibility and you got recognition. You don't know how that made people feel so good. In fact, people were excited, when the meeting is coming up. They may not be part of the meeting, but to hear that, their name was mentioned in the midst of those top level executives was something that people were looking forward to and they were happy to. So, it's for us to be creative and figure out those non-monetary ways to engage people, to keep them committed to the organization. Okay, so going back to chapter 1 again, some of the comments for chapter 1 or my findings from chapter 1. I repeat, because you spend so much time at work, people are, they seek to find identity in the workplace that they live in. They work in. If they feel valued, then they'll be motivated to work more. They'll be motivated to give their best, right? And this is something that organizations can leverage on to aim for higher performance levels. Of course, when there's higher performance levels, what do we get? We get satisfied clients, and of course, the most important thing for organizations, greater profits. So this chapter basically puts forward the need to consider organizations as people-centered. The key to organizational success has been established that it's putting your people first. However, let's note that there's no one size fits all. So what works for me in FIMO might not necessarily work for Shoemimo in Trino, right? So know what works for you and, suits your practices accordingly. Don't say, because Isn't said this one, that's what I'm going to adopt in my company. When your manager gives you a pushback, so just know what works for you and what works for your people. I always say, feel the pulse of the people. I say this to people when I talk to them one-on-one. I say, what are your people? What do your people want? I remember, when I worked in this place I talked about communication being very strong. We would do employee engagement surveys, right? And it was not a tick of the box practice. It was something that I knew because I took it upon myself. I ran it from the beginning to the end. So I would do the surveys, administer the surveys. Of course, we'll get consultants to do the readings and analysis, but we'll unpack it. We'll make sure to unpack the results to everyone. So everyone sees that, this is what the pulse of the people, this is what the people are saying about this. And it didn't just stop there. We would extract certain things, certain gaps, and we would address them. Of course, we knew that we couldn't address them all at once, but we'll say, okay, fine, for this year, we're going to address 2 major things, or we're going to address 3 major things. And we didn't just stop there. We had a monitoring process in place. So we made sure that every quarter we'll do a quarterly appraisal to make sure, you know, with everybody. So each team will do your quarterly appraisal and rates and say, well, you know, this is where we are at and this is not where we're at. This is what we need to do to improve. And that was the way we're able to keep on building the trust of the people. Because tomorrow, I've worked somewhere where when we do engagement survey, they'll say, is it that one that people do? You just go and do and keep it somewhere. No. So we needed to show the people that we were not doing it just as a tick of the box exercise. It was something that we're interested in seeing the results and applying those results. So yes, communication, you know, and that, you know, you do this through communication with the people. So each organization needs to design and build its processes and systems to suit its own employees with their own unique needs. So that's that for chapter 1. I will go into chapter 2. Chapter 2 was interesting. I really loved it. That's where it started to get exciting. The meat actually is in chapter 3 and 4, and I'm jealous that Shomima is doing that, but no problem. No problem. We share the fun. But let me start the fun with chapter 2. So now in chapter 2, it talks about, the cognitive technology revolution, right? And it talks about the redefinition of the worker's identity and the meaning they attach to work, especially with the application of new technology to work. So technology is here, there's digitization, but it comes with an implication for demand for better specialized skills. So as a HR professional, you cannot be the same, you know, as technology is coming, because you just be made redundant. And that's the conversation we've been having about technology. You know, we've had this conversation year in, year out, where people say, oh, there's a lot of horror and there's a lot of terror. Oh, is technology coming to take my job? It's not coming to take your job, but then it will take your job if you're not ready and able to ride on that curve, on that wave. You know how it is on the river, you know, the sea, when the wave comes, if you should be able to ride that wave, right? But if you're not able to ride the wave, you will drown. So that's what it is, you know. We hear this, all the technology, ChatGPT, all the AI, all those things. See, they're just tools as far as I'm concerned. They're just tools to enhance your job, but you have to upskill yourself. You have to be upskill yourself to, you know, to be ready for the application or the emergence of this technology and the evolving of the technology. So the demand for these skills, like I said, if technology comes and it doesn't meet you ready, you might fall into the redundant pool. And that's what brings about things like downsizing, right? Because the company needs better, better skills to handle the new technology. And of course, when downsizing comes, it comes with a domino effect of job insecurity to workers. But like I said, I don't choose to dwell on the negative implications of technology. I choose to look at it as a partnership. And the author says so. It's a partnership where technology is there to enhance what you do, right? It's a tool, it's an ally, you know, to work with you as a HR professional to make your work more efficient. Another emergent issue that this chapter talked about was different, and this was very interesting to me, the different existing workplace demographics and how to manage their differences. I remember I had a presentation with people about, you know, I was in a room filled with millennials, lots of millennials, and they were talking about how to deal with Gen Zs. You know, we have this I won't call it war, you know, oh, these Gen Z children, you know, what are they doing, you know, and let me tell you, for me, it's just a cycle. The same way the baby boomers were complaining when the millennials came into the workplace. So it's just a cycle. But the thing is, how do we manage each other? How do we deal with our differences and leverage on them? So it is, in light of this, it's recommended that HR policies are put in place to address these differences. And managing these differences will determine how successful an organization will be. And really, I'm talking to the HR professionals. It's your responsibility to look into how to manage these differences. Now, the book talked about millennials. I mean, the chapter talked about millennials. It also talked about the baby boomers, but I was really particularly interested in millennials because I'm one. But yeah, my bias was more towards the millennials. And it says that the millennials are known as Generation Me. Millennials are selfish, or are generally regarded as selfish. They're in it for themselves. Unlike the baby boomers, like I said, the baby boomers are the ones who hear that stayed in the workplace for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, just to get that wall clock. But that's not a millennial. A typical millennial is like, nah, I'm not doing this. You know, what's in it for me? How does this work bring in value, meaning to my life? You know, that's the typical millennial. And they're also the app generation. So the millennials came in, you know, during the time when, you know, the technology was at its, well, somewhat at its peak, yeah? So we're the ones that, the generation that was first of all majorly shaped by technology. So we have high levels of adaptability because we, you know, we were born into that period where there was a lot of innovation, things were changing. And so, you know, if you're born in that curve, you don't have a choice but to adapt. And that's why millennials are known as great change management agents, because they're able to deal with change. So, you know, if you identify as a millennial and you're a HR professional, I guess by default, you're able to handle change, you know, in the workplace. So leverage on that. And so you're definitely assets to the organization in this regard. So our tech savviness, our collaborativeness, and other unique traits that we possess, while being advantages, they could pose as challenges in the workplace, especially in how we relate and interact with other generations, because the baby boomers are looking at you and like, what's doing this one? And then you're looking at the Gen Z and you're like, why are these ones so, you know, everything that comes to their mouth, they say, you know, there's no filter. So how do you manage these differences? Because meaning of work is going to be interpreted in different ways through the eyes of the different generations. Like I said, for a millennial, I have to do what gives me meaning. I would rather come to work and I have work-life balance. I don't want this kind of work that I'm working from morning till night and there's nothing to show, only a paycheck. What more is there in it for me? So we need to understand the different demographics and how they view the meaning of work, right? Because it is those things that we will now understand and reflect in our HR policies and processes to attract the different generations, because the baby boomers are still in the workplace, the millennials are there, the Gen Zs are coming in, and before you know it, watch out, the Gen Alphas are on their way. So you need to, as a HR professional, understand the different traits and how they work and how they view work, you know, so that you can have them coexist efficiently in the workplace. And so this generational change in the meaning of work also coincides with the transformation of the traditional career model into a flatter model. There's no boundaries, you know, it's not about moving from step to step. People are moving on this line. Some people are not even bothered about, well, I have to be a manager or whatever. It's just about, you know, different levels of work, you know, different titles or different areas of work, but not necessarily about the title. So what does work mean to different people? You have to understand that and inculcate it into your workplace policies. And the author suggests that different types of mentoring can be implemented in workplace to identify the diverse skills and knowledge the generations have. And he talked about mentoring, yeah? So when we think about mentoring, we think about, oh, okay, I've been in this in many years more than you, I have more knowledge than you, so I'm here. So typically by default, we look at maybe someone is older or someone has more experience and you're mentoring the younger ones. But then there's also the reverse mentoring. And what readily comes to my mind is the story of First Bank. I don't know if we remember, you know, when we used to see First Bank as this old school bank. And then all of a sudden, First Bank was getting hip, you know, was getting with the times. So what happened? They decided that, okay, they were going to take advantage of the skills they had of the different demographics in the system. You had the millennials that were tech savvy and you had the baby boomers that were not tech savvy. So what did they do? They had the millennials reverse mentor the older ones, the baby boomers, so that they were kept up to speed, you know, with the tech, the tech innovations. And, you know, that was what made things just boom in First Bank. You know, everything was now, everything just rapidly, you know, got, changed, everything changed, you know, the systems and everything. And I think I also see that, you know, come to play in Union Bank, because Union Bank too used to seem like an old school bank, but Union Bank is not the same. So how do you leverage the different demographics you have in your workplace? The younger person, that millennial, that Gen Z person may have some knowledge that you can leverage on. How do you get them to reverse mentor, you know, the millennials? How do you get them to reverse mentor the baby boomers? And, you know, vice versa. How do you get the baby boomers? Because the baby boomers and maybe the millennials have the history, they've been in the system, they know certain things. How do you get them to mentor these people. So how, it's about knowing as a HR person, as a HR professional, how to leverage and maximize those different workplace demographics to make things work in the organization. So it behoves management to learn how to, like I said, maximize the different generational traits for a better and more productive workforce. I will go back. There are a few other comments that I just want to add before I hand over to Showemimo. I think that this had to do with chapter 2 in a way. When Vicky gave her review, she talked about leveraging on tech to improve our work. And we talked about, not just using tech to automate existing HR processes, but creating new HR strategies that take advantage of the digital tools and platforms that we have. And like I had said this earlier, to make this successful HR, you need to upskill yourself. You need to be data-driven. I remember when I saw this data-driven thing, I remember the book. You remember when we talked about HR in the boardroom and even talent management, we talked about data. It's very important for us to be data-driven. It's very important for us to have the skills of the data analytics skills, because you need to be able to analyze your data, right? You need to be able to be agile, quick to adapt to change and be collaborative, because there's a lot of, the work now is about collaboration. It's not standalone. You have to be able to work with different stakeholders and be open to change, embrace new ways of working. So with HR going digital, it challenges a lot of things, the traditional way of work. So now you find that you don't have to physically go for interviews, right? You can be like how we have our meetings here, have your interviews virtually. Even now we're having this meeting. I remember during the pandemic, a lot of our meetings were online. If you were not tech savvy, you would have struggled. So how do you upskill yourself to keep with the times, right? Even work. Some people do remote work. I work remotely, like pretty much a large percentage of my time, and my work is going on without any hitches. How would I have been able to do that if I was not tech savvy? So technology is really changing the way of work. And how do you become digitally HR, right? You have to be well versed in HR tech. How well versed are you in HRS? Go and learn how to use ATS. Go and learn performance systems. All those are they're AI tools that are being used to automate those things. How well versed are you? Go and learn how to do those things. Develop data analytics skills. I've talked about this. Stay up to date with tech trends. We've heard the buzz about ChatGPT 4, whatever, the Midjourney, all those AI tools that are coming out. I did a posting link on that, and and I was saying that, people are terrified. No, don't be terrified. See it as your partner. Your partner has come. You found a tool to partner with. Find ways to leverage on that to make your work more efficient and more effective. Develop and enhance your soft skills, because there are certain things that technology cannot replace, right? Technology cannot take the human part of, it can automate things, but it cannot take out the human part. So develop your soft skills, your collaboration skills, your communication skills, your problem solving skills, because you will need to interact with different stakeholders. And then look for digital HR opportunities, right? These are Vicky's words. Look for HR opportunities. If you want to, work as a people analytics specialist, there are lots of those roles out there. A HRS specialist, something in the line of that, so that you can hone your skills. Please look out for them so that you're able to keep with the times. So yeah, that's that on chapters 1 and 2. I will hand over to Showemimo for chapter 3 and 4, and I'll be back with chapter 5. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Ezinne. So you've actually stepped into my part of the review, because most of the things you mentioned at the later part are actually some of the things in chapter 3, because chapter 3 is all about digitalization, digital transformation. And one of the things that chapter emphasizes, HR needs to become very, very strategic. Like HR should become a tool that is in the forefront, driving all these changes we're talking about. So the emphasis on upskilling, the emphasis of knowing how all these cognitive technology works, is very, very important. And also the chapter also said something very interesting, that we are not the enforcement and punishment officer. We've moved past that level. So we should be looking at matters, we should be seeing situations from the people's eye, and as well at the same time, having the mindset that you want to create value, that's one of the major functions of HR. You have to create value in every situation. So you're not just out to, okay, this person, this staff is late, or you're trying to catch someone not doing things right. That's not what the book is talking about. So the book is saying that, okay, as HR, we have to think of how we create value more, and the value has to be strategically aligned with the business goals. And one of the things it also talked about is, okay, so Ezine was talking about that we need to embrace data, become more data-driven analytics. So he also mentioned that, okay, so before people analytics was just like was a specialization, but now it is part of the core functions of HR. So it's not just as HR, you pride yourself that, okay, I'm an HR generalist, and so I don't know so much of people analytics, or this person is a people analyst. No, so everything you do, so right from your recruitment to your engagement, to your performance, to learning and development, it has to be, the analytics is involved, because that helps you make data-driven decisions. So you don't just make decision out of the blues, or because you feel, okay, this is the right thing to do and all that. So even when isn't the mentioned and what you were talking about, feeling the people's pulse, even when you do that, it could be data driven, because when it's data driven, so you're speaking from facts, you're speaking from figures. So I was sharing with a friend of mine. He was my friend was telling me about some of the talent turnover they've been having in the organization. And yes, it's amazing. The business is making a lot of money, but they are also experiencing high staff turnover. So I was sharing with the person that, say, I'm very certain that the HR people in that space they are not ready to get their hands dirty. And I told the person, what do I mean getting your hands dirty? See, I told the person, so one of the things they need to do is they need to use data to make the management see that the more people we're losing, the more money they're also losing. Because it's like a mirage. Because they are making more money, they're not paying so much attention to the people that are losing. So I was telling him that you need to do a bit of data work. Get all your facts and figures. And with that, if you present to the management can listen to you when you make a proposition regarding staff turnover. And so this is what cognitive technology is telling us as HR to embrace, that we can use all these tools to our advantage. Just to emphasize what Ezine said, it's not going to take our job. We would see it in one of the chapters where it says that there is still need for the human relation parts in the HR space. We can't take our job. So it's important for us to see these technologies as they are helping us. They are like our allies. They make our work, they make us do all the automated, the routine jobs. They help us with that, while we focus more on the human relation of HR. So another thing he talked about is okay, so I've mentioned handling the data. So it helps us to handle big data, and big data can scare people away, but this book is saying no, it shouldn't be that. The big data should help you when you embrace this idea of dealing with big data. So for example, an organization that has like a 10,000 workforce, how are you not going to use data to make your decisions? As in, how do you want to think, okay, staff A, staff B, staff Z, staff 1001 ID number, how do you want to be able to make right decisions for such people? So embracing the big data, be more, so another thing he said in that space was, it helps you to ask the right questions. When you have data, you are able to ask the right, because another challenge I have encountered is at times we get stuck in situations and we don't know, we have an idea, but we don't know how to ask the right questions to get the kind of results or the kind of help we want. So this book is saying that when we embrace digital transformation, when we embrace digitalization, we're able to deal with big data. And once we're able to deal with big data, it helps us to, it prompts us in the right directions. And when we have that, we are able to ask the right question. So they talked about a case study here where numerous AI tools are emerging. And it's saying, it's just so this is also like an emphasis of what Ezinne said, that we need to upskill. So you need a skilled operator to operate these AI tools. So it's not just, okay, I don't like tech. I don't like digital. No, we've moved past that. I'm sure every HR of personnel is familiar with HR information system. So that's just one of the AI tools that we're talking about. There is a whole lot of other tools that you have to familiarize yourself with. So in this book review, we're going to talk about one interesting tool that they developed in that helps with a lot of social collaboration. Very, very interesting. So it tells you how you can, how smart you can work. So you have to be skilled. So I would implore every HR, look at your present organization. What AI tool do you think they are using? And as HR, when you embrace that, when you get yourself familiarized with it, it helps you to deliver efficiency in your work. It helps you to deliver value. Remember, the book said we should be able to create value. So it also talked about that traditional HR competencies will not disappear. The first discussant mentioned that it will not disappear. It is here. However, these new competencies that we're talking about enhances us to help us deal with current situation. You will not agree with me that most of the challenges we are facing in the workplace today is different from, let's say, 5 years, 10 years back. It's totally different. So what these cognitive technologies do for us is help us to be able to stay abreast, help us to stay trendy, and we're able to manage the current situation, because every day situations arises and we need new way of thinking. Yes, that's the word, new way of thinking to resolve the situation. So also this chapter talks about that it's very important for HR professional to understand the business. And understanding the business means that, how does your business make profits? How do they make money? So this is a confession. I didn't finish the HR in the boardroom, but I was reading the reviews on the group. And one of the things that stood out for me, it was, as HR professional, you should be able to talk numbers. You want to sit on the table, you should be able to speak. I mean, you should be able to stand up with your CFO and have conversation. And we all know that having conversation with CFO, it's a different ball game entirely. So it means you understand the balance sheets, you understand the financial statement, you understand the profit and loss. I mean, the entire value chain of how that business makes money. You have an idea. So it doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you're an expert, but at least when they're talking numbers, you're able to contribute. And not just contribute, you have to contribute in such a way that all your HR services is feeding into those numbers. So for example, the organization should be able to understand the cost implication of when a staff resigns as a result of being disengaged, or as a result of being displeased with the organization. There is a cost implication to it. And you should be able to relay that to the management, that this is the cost implication. So so in that way, you're trying to save costs. And when you also bring business when you also bring contracts to the business. So understanding how the business creates profit is very, very crucial and important. Another thing he talked about is HR professional needs to be competent in policies and processes. policies and processes. Now, most of us, well, let me just use the word generally, we create policies, we create processes, but we don't make out time to see if our staff, they do understand these policies and processes. And I'm happy when Ezinne said that there was a time when we were talking about strategy in one of the places where she worked, and they had to come down to the lower level and explain to make a front desk officer understand how she plays, how her part fits into the big role. That's making her understand her processes. So when you create a policy for a front desk officer and you're telling her that, okay, your policy says this is how you greet when you're doing in a phone conversation or when a customer calls to make an inquiry. If she doesn't understand how that fits into the bigger picture, she would just feel like, okay, they asked me to do it, so I'm not in the mood to do it today. So what does it really mean? No, this book is saying we have to understand the policies, and not just to understand policies, be competent in policies and processes, but we have to be able to communicate it such that it becomes an ABC understanding for everybody in the organization. Trust me, sometimes the middle level, the senior level, they don't even understand why these policies are in place. You'll be shocked that some of them, they don't. So it's on us. Remember, we are HR in a digital world, and we're trying to create value. And this is how we create value. Another thing he talked about is we have to be good. We have to, let me use the word, sharpen our change management skill. Now, we know that change is a difficult thing for everybody. The average human doesn't like change. But in the context of an organization, we cannot run away from change management. Imagine during the pandemic, if a lot of organizations were not flexible, were not agile, how would they have survived? I'm sure many organizations would have been affected negatively. So it's the responsibility of the HR professional to understand change management. And there's a way you communicate change the organization, and everybody buys into it. So for crying out loud, you're bringing a new tool, you're bringing a new technology, and you are not planning your change process, as in you are not detailed. See, right from the beginning, that technology has failed. And trust me, it has failed. So this is where our change management skill becomes very, very critical. Also, we have to be competent in gathering data information. I'd already mentioned that earlier, and interpreting it into valuable information. So I have let me just say an example. I have in my workforce, I have like 30% of married young married women in the age of childbearing. That is saying something. Or I have like 30% of people between the age of 50 and 65. That is also saying something. It's an information it's passing across. Remember, we're talking about data. So data gives you that information. So how are you able to interpret it? So in the case of the older generation, it's telling you that, see, these people are nearing retirement. What plans do you have for them? When they leave, who are the people to step into their shoes? So in that space, you're thinking of succession planning. It comes into place. So your learning and development takes another dimension, because you want to be sure that, okay, you have people that are ready. So maybe you want to move people from middle management, you start grooming them, coaching them for that level. So this is what this book is saying, that data is important, and we have to be able to communicate it in such that it becomes a valuable information. Data is raw. If you just bring it, show me the Excel table. So what do I do with it? I should be, as HR manager, as HR professional, I should be able to interpret it in a valuable information. So this chapter also talks about organizational network analysis. And this is an interesting part, because this is a structure mode at which shows how information flows. So you might want to do you might want to examine your organization to see how information flows. Every organization has a peculiar way information flows, and also this part of the book is also talked about. There are certain people. This is interesting. So there are official channels how information flows, and there are unofficial channels how inform. But you'll be amazed that the stronger messages flows more through unofficial channel. Sometimes I rack my head how it happens. But it's just it's like an organic thing, because I'm not sure any organization structure their processes that way. You just find out that there are people that are influencers in your organization, and these people in principle, it's not that they have the certificate, though. It's not that they have, well, they just have the way of, they are the one, they are the voice. So this is talking about how you make use of those people. How do you use them? So, for example, I'm an HR professional, so I want to bring in a new technology. It is these people that I have to focus on. Use them to pass my messages. So we're not saying the official mode is bad. No, we're not saying it. But we're saying we have to be aware of these two mode of information flowing, information sharing. Remember when Ezine was when she was in chapter 1, she talked about that employees want information sharing. So you don't want them to share an information that is half shared information can turn the organization upside down, because they take it out of context. But when you're being deliberate as HR, you know that this channel exists, and you're intentional of the kind of information that flows through the channel, even though it's not the official. It gives you a bit of sanity, especially in a change management period. It helps you to manage people's expectation. It helps you to manage the kind of information that is going out. You don't just want information to just, as in people just picking information, not sure of which one is the truth and which one is not the truth. So another thing he talked about is so there was a bit of research here. He talks about a pessimistic school of thought, which was talking about the death of traditional HR with the increase of digitalization. But I think what we in this space, what we should focus on is that as HR, we can step up our game. We can step up. So it's not just being about organizations that is being digital, but organization that has become digital in itself. In everything we do, we are digital. So because I can say, okay, I know about digitalization, I've heard about it, but the question is, how digital have I become? Am I process digital? Am I structured digital? So this leads me to say that digitalization has helped us to revolutionize the workplace. It's not taking it out. It's not taking the traditional HR services and functions out, but it is helping us to enhance how we deliver our services, how we bring value to the table, how we help people see that, okay, so when you embrace this process, when you embrace this new idea, you're able to do your work in a smarter way. You're able to have, so in the real sense, you have more time to yourself. So for example, let's talk about filing system. Why will I have to file, to keep filing paper every day? So in my workplace, we're moving to an enterprise. We do things manually, so we're now moving. And one of the things my admin officer will say is, I've been waiting for this period for a very long time, that I don't have to be carrying paper everywhere. Now it's just with a touch of button. I make my request, it goes to the necessary approval, I get my approval, and I get my job done. Because imagine, so it goes to the first floor for approval, That's first level approval. He moves to another office for approval, second level approval. Time is being wasted. He's using a lot of energy to deliver on a job where at your seat is just the touch of button. So I'm going to go to chapter 4. So chapter 4 is talking about social network as strategic allies for HR practices. So social network has been interesting, and it has helped us. It has helped us thus far in the organizational space. It has played a significant role in how communication flows in organization, because with social network, it's easy. So Ezinne mentioned something about newsletter. She mentioned something about the intranet. So we have the likes of Slack, we have the Microsoft Teams, we have the Google Meet, the Google Workspace. All that are social network. And one of the things the social network has made us to enjoy is the power of collaboration. Collaboration is very, so imagine us working on a project, and I have an office in Kano, I have another office in Abuja, I have another office in Akure, and I have another office in Lagos. And with the advent of social network, we can collaborate. We just have to be just have to connect, and we can deliver at the same timeline on the same project. So before now, how do organizations survive? That was a question I asked myself, and I'm like, okay, organizations that have branches all over the country, how were they able to get work done at a good speed without with the traveling? Well, it's amazing. I can't wrap my head around it. So maybe because I wasn't in the workspace during those periods. I'm one of the millennials, like, isn't it? So I couldn't fathom. Maybe someone like Ogayemi can tell us. Or, I mean, yes, isn't it? You should be able to tell us. But I know they have years of experience. So I'm interested in knowing how organizations were able to survive during those periods. So, like I said, social network promotes collaboration, which is a major work, has supported work process in a major way. So one of the advantages of social network is it helps to convey knowledge sharing. It helps to, so you know, I'm in Lagos, Ezinne is in Kaduna, and Ezinne has worked on a project that I'm just working on. And with social network, I can reach Ezinne at the speed of light. And she's able to share, she's able to put me through. She's able to help me walk through that project, and I'm able to deliver. This is what we're talking about. That is what social network is all about. It helps in knowledge sharing. It helps people to also connect. So another thing we can look at is the LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has become a place where we learn a whole lot. For a whole lot of LinkedIn offers a whole lot of things. But in the space of connecting with people, so I can connect with someone in Australia with LinkedIn, and I'm just in Nigeria. I'm in Lagos. I'm in Ojota right now in my room, and I can connect with someone in America. I can connect with someone in Budapest. I can connect with someone in Hong Kong, all thanks to social network. Another thing is communication. Yes, I already mentioned that in my previous discussion, that communication has become more seamless, as in more efficient and more seamless. So I don't have to send a letter, or the era where I still had to send well, before email became so instant. When I mean instant, you know, these days I can be chatting with Ezinne and she's giving me reply immediately. There was a time that was quite difficult. So imagine if I needed Ogayemi to give me a feedback on a project I'm working, and it would take maybe like a day or 2 days for me to get the feedback. the book is saying with social network, that has been taken away. So this is just showing us reasons why we should embrace these cognitive technologies. They are just showing us pointers why we should engage them. Imagine if there was no social network during pandemic. I need us to actually think about it. If there was no social network during pandemic, what do we do? How will the business world have survived? Trust me, maybe in the Western world, it could have been easy for them, but I'm not sure in our climate here. I'm sure would have struggled, even because some business that were not future oriented, that were not agile enough, they actually felt the impact a lot they did. So so when we talk, so I mentioned something about knowledge sharing. So look at Wikipedia. One of the things Wikipedia does for us, it's a body of knowledge. You know, you will all agree with me that knowledge has become very, very open. Google will give you almost anything, like you just name it, anything. But there should, I think people would also think about the cost of that. So that means that access to open source of knowledge will bring about the issue of intellectual property. So how do we protect our intellectual property? So protecting our intellectual property should not actually be a negative impact. And what do I mean by that? So someone would say that, okay, I don't want my property to be, I don't want my intellectual property to be out there without being protected or without being accredited to me. So the book is saying that shouldn't be a problem. What that opens us up is to conversations, how this intellectual property can be protected. So it's also another form of area of research and area of discussion. It's because we can't shy away from it. We see people we see people take credit for people's work, other people's work, which shouldn't be. At least you know you're not the original, you're not the originator. So the least you could do is give credit to the person who created it. So the book is saying that shouldn't stop us from embracing the idea of open knowledge, that we have all the knowledge out there. And also the book also, I like the emphasis that he made about open knowledge, that if you look at it on the flip side, it gives room for people to have conversation and for people to be well grounded in the area of specialization. Well grounded in the sense that, so for example, what we're doing right now, it's knowledge sharing. What we're doing right now is helping someone get better at understanding what digital HR is all about. And that's one of the things the book is actually supporting, that there is room for upskilling. When we have conversations like this, you get better, you get more knowledgeable at what you do. Another distinction that the book actually mentioned is the fact that the difference between social collaboration and social network. So social collaboration is more of group oriented, and while social network is more individualistic in nature. So I mentioned some tools earlier, Google Workspace, Zoom, SharePoint, Slack, all those are social networks. All those are social collaboration. And while of course we know what the social networks are, my Facebook, my Instagram, all that are social. Yes, they're social network. So it's saying that all these are just they are just available for us to communicate and share information, which is one of the things I've emphasized in my earlier conversation. So I get to the interesting part. So there is an Italian startup that's human capital. So what they did was they created a social network tool called People Performance Plan, PP 3.0. So it's a digital workspace. Very, very interesting. And what it does is it helps to monitor and improve internal communication within the organization. So it's when you have this model, what it does for you is it's a social platform, but what it really does within the organization is to improve communication and monitor how people interact. And one of the things it addresses is it addresses training. So this is where it's interesting. It addresses training, performance, and this performance feeds into compensation and benefits. It addresses recruitment, data analytics, and it also even helps you to know who your informal work influencers in the workplace are. Is it not interesting? So when we talked about organization and network analysis, so this is where if you interact with this model, it helps you to see those people that are not that are informal influencers. And the benefit, one of the benefits of this model that the book talked about is it doesn't just focus on the work alone. It also focuses on the social life of the employees, because you have something like car sharing. There's a platform for car sharing. There's a platform for, yes, option to carpooling and hitching a ride. And it also gives work sharing as well, where you collaborate on a work and it awards people, it gives people credits for the work they have done. And also it takes, yes, I said that it takes personal lives into consideration, such that, because from what I understood, this model believes that co-workers should get to know themselves better. And when they get to know themselves better, it creates a better work engagement. That's my own understanding of this model. So it helps to promote people getting to know each other better. Ezine mentioned something that we spend the better part of our work in the workplace. So I'm sure for some of us, we've made friends from workplace that has become like, like we say, this person has become like a family. So this model will support such interaction. And it's saying that when such interaction happen, it creates, it gives room for better work engagement. Hey, don't we all want better work engagement? I'm sure we all do, because better work engagement means that on the long run, the profit and the organization will be doing well. So just to round up this my chapter 4, it says that okay, so social network helps us to, so when it addresses our communication need, it gives room for more robust business opportunities. And what I understood by that is the fact that when there is a clear-cut communication within the organization becomes more focused. The organization is not distracted by issues that can arise as a result of communication, which means that when they are focused, it gives room for the organization to think of other business opportunities, other ways where the organization can expand and actually focus on the vision where we're going. So that's what I understood from that aspect. And it's also saying that HR becomes a great partner, because remember, we are the one driving all this. All these I've been mentioning is driven by the HR professional. And when we do this, it puts us, we become value creators. We become strategic partners to the organization. And it only gives us more room to be able to assert who we are, what we can offer to the organization. And lastly, I want to just re-emphasize what Ezinne said when she was also rounding up her part of the chapter 1 and chapter 2. So it says that all these they are tools that can help us. They are tools that, if well guided, as in like guided in alignment with the vision and the mission of the organization, we only have good results to talk about. We only have profits making to discuss, because one of the things it will do for us is, like I mentioned, clear communication. So we are going to experience a change process, a change period is well communicated. And once we do that, we are able to, we have a hitch-free process of changing, moving from manual to digital, moving from one level to the other. And okay, I think basically that's just all that I was able to pick from the book. Of course, other people's review is also welcome. So, Ezinne, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Shoremimo. I was smiling, and I was like, every time, I told you, I said chapters 3 and 4 were really exciting. In fact, I was reading, I was like, aha, I was like, aha. So when you were giving your reviews, I was smiling because I could relate with every single thing you said. I could picture vividly as I was reading, everything you were pointing on. So amazing review. And I like how relatable it is, how we can relate it to the stuff, the work that we do. So yeah, I'm going to do chapter 5 and conclude. I'm going to run through it because we're way past 9 o'clock, but I will try as much as possible to run through it. What I noticed is that there's a lot of re-emphasis on certain things throughout the chapters. I think that, the authors were trying to really emphasize on particular things. And, so chapter 5 talks about evidence from this case study, this very interesting case study. In my mind, I call it the metaverse in the workplace. It was a community. And it reminds me of something that we had in a place and by the way, you asked something. Please, when I started working, we were not doing snail mail, we were doing email. So I don't know anything about that. Anyway, so yeah, P 3.0, very interesting. But I'll go back to re-emphasize certain things that the author was saying in this chapter and said, see, it just says that cognitive technology is not a replacement, it's an ally, right? It could be a strategic ally to people in the workplace, empowering them to create value. And it could also help revolutionize HRM practices as long as, and Shoremimo said that, as long as it's used in line with a clear-cut organizational vision. Also, the use of cognitive technology is to help with efficiency in routine areas, like Shoremimo talked about filing, through automation. So it frees us of time to focus on the human side of work. Therefore, HR leaders are tasked, especially because we're talking to us, we're HR people, we're tasked with redesigning new ways of work to learn and reflect and have more emphasis on soft skills and leave all that, routine tasks to the AI, because they're like, AI is telling you, I've got this, right? Leave it to me, I'll take care of it. You focus on, the things that need to be focused on, the human, the HR skills, the empathy, critical thinking, ethics, all those things, those things that matter, those things that the machines cannot do. You're there to make sure to, focus on that. So first things first, let's note that cognitive technology is an umbrella title, is made up of. So it's not just AI, there's robotics, there's social media, it's everything they all fall under cognitive technology. And like Shoremimo said, social media and social network are used in organizations to enhance collaboration and communication, I'm here, you're there in Qatar, in wherever, and I can communicate with you. When I worked, I've worked in companies that we had offices all around the world. I would be working with people, I have never met them before physically, but we're working so seamlessly. It's because of social platforms, social networking, social media. So this chapter goes further to talk about this exciting case study by this Das Human Capital and the deployment. So one thing that stood out to me, which is what Showroomer talked about, was the method of choosing the ambassadors. So the ONA that we spoke to, the informal, influencers. I like that word, influencers, even though we've abused it a lot in Nigeria. This influencer thing is real. I remember when I worked in a company, right? And I had a manager, my HR manager we were reporting to. He always used to tell us, so before we would have our meetings, right? And then he would say, you guys go to the shop floor and find out what the people are saying. Like, we want to introduce something, go and find out what the people are saying. And so those of us in the team that, would talk to people, outside, like you're talking to people in staff boss or people coming to your office and you're just still, you're able to get information that we're able to get that information from the shop floor to feed to management. So you that will sit down in your office, you're sitting in your ivory nice office, and you think that you're going to put out policies that will help the people when you don't know the pulse of the people. You're wasting your time. Or you need those informal people. They're very important. Because I found that every time we got that information from the shop floor, we'll bring it to our manager and say, hey, this is what the people are saying. This is their preference. We'll be like, So we'll put everything together. The data will be analyzed, like Showroomer said, and then it would then be presented to management. And then the moment that initiative is rolled out, it gains a lot of traction because people were already on board and aligned with it. So please do not take for granted these people, the informal influencers. They're very, very important. So don't sit down high and mighty with your straight face and be with your coffee and think that you can sit in your offices and form policies. You need to go out to the floor, go and meet with the people and hear from them, pass your information or your whatever it is across through those people that, hold the thread of the organization, because truly those are the people that do. So like I said, I was very interested in the way the ambassadors were chosen. The way they were chosen by colleagues nominated them. So you will know that these are the happening people, the people that everybody can relate with, right? Because they had a level of social mobility. They were the ones that people knew, the hey guys, when they talk, people will listen. And of course, when they were choosing them, there were people, they had to rep a business unit. So, you would have to be a representative of the business unit amongst other criteria. So these ambassadors then became the evangelists to bring other people onto the platform. So if I've been on the platform and I'm an influencer and I'm like, hey guys, you guys jump on this thing, it's really good. Because sometimes there's cynicism, there's skepticism, like, what's this company bringing out? What is that thing? But when you have your person that you just with, and the person is saying, guy, this thing is working, it works, so try it out, you're more inclined to join. So that's what these people were, that the what do you call it, the experiment recognized those people and leveraged on them to bring other people on board. And so the level of social collaboration was measured by certain factors, quantitative and qualitative. First of all, what the level of participation the people had, the interaction and the commitment to the project was. Then the qualitative spoke to the network, the number of people, or how quickly people were able to develop new relationships on that platform. And there were certain deliverables that were using to measure these things. You'll find that, I listed them in my reviews that I dropped. There were things like Wiki, where you had those knowledge-based platforms where people could talk about innovative issues. Then there were the frequently asked questions where people could, put up questions and people could answer them. So there was a lot of knowledge sharing. And then there was also a contest, where people could, put together best problem solving proposals, in reference to it. So if I have a problem, if there's a job, if there's something I'm doing that's really I'm racking my head on how to solve it, and I post it up and like, hey guy, help me out, and people prefer solutions. There was a contest to see who was the best. So of course I'll be inspired to, put out my ideas, because there's a reward at the end of it. The people in charge of the experiment went further to analyze the platform interactions, and it helped them measure engagement with regards to specific organization initiatives and corporate communication on the platform. So maybe the MD puts out something, you see how well people take it in. Those are the things that they were measuring, right? And based on this, the algorithm from the analysis, the platform was able to see communication patterns between co-workers. So you could see, that was how you could tell, okay, this person is someone who can gain traction, someone who people listen to, and all that, and see how, you know, they were able to see also how people collaborate to achieve set KPIs and common goals. So if there was a task or a project to be done, people could put it up on the platform and then all work together. So it was online, real time. You could see how people were working together to achieve it. And then they were able to define the most reliable users in reference to certain tasks or skills. You know, when you post stuff up, and I liken it to like the group, you know, our groups, our HR groups. You know, there are certain people that when you want something, you want certain information, there's some people that are quick to give you that information. They won't hoard, they're happy to share. So I think that's how that played out. They were able to use this to identify those kind of people. They were also able to identify knowledge, skills, and gaps, because, you know, based on the kind of questions someone puts out in the platform, you're able to say, like now, even in this session now, someone has identified a need for people analytics. So, you know, you see those things, and, you know, that's the information that is being gathered, you know, by HR people saying, okay, let's identify. And that is important to managers for KPI setting, and then for training and need analysis, which feeds into the learning and development plans for the organization. So you can see how that platform was leveraged on to also feed into people-based practices or processes. So studying it, the organization paid attention to actions, like I said, topics discussed, and relationship networks on the platform. And then users were then classified into, you know, those ones that just come on and wait a while before on the platform before posting. Like I said, when I thought about it, I thought about our groups and how people behave in the groups. So you have those people that will not talk, they're just there observing. Then after a while, they warm up and then they start posting. Then there are those that are just the frequent posters. They will post no matter what. If that person has not posted in a day, you know that something is happening. Then there's the collaborative person, which is what I talked about. That person is always ready to share. If you have a question about HR or whatever, the person is there ready to share. So that was how they were analyzing people based on their interaction on the platform. And then to further stimulate engagement, then the group of influencers was created, and these were made up of active users, and they were tasked with building buzz, maintaining the tempo, creating new connections, encouraging knowledge sharing. And then after that, you know, because I'm very big on when you create a project or when you put an initiative, track it, monitor it, and measure and see the results and all that. So this is what they did. After that, a questionnaire was administered to determine how effective the platform could be for HRM. And then most of the users, 64% of them affirmed that it was going to be great for HRM. And then, of course, because management was involved, so management was not just standing aside aloof and like, it's for you people, I'm not part of it. They were involved. And of course, that also drove the engagement on the platform. So the social platform experiment brought about a few findings. First of all, it showed that formal and informal part of the organization, they coexist symbiotically. Like I said, you spend a large part of your life at work. So you can't remove that informal part. There is there. You go to work, you eat with people, you gist with people. You are the water, when you get to the water cooler, you are gisting, hey, you know what happened? You know, that thing that happened over the weekend, you know, you're gisting. So there's that social part. You cannot remove that social part. It's part of your work life. And so it is from these threads of informal interaction that an organization develops its unique culture. So there are certain offices you go to, like, you know, I work somewhere that we know that, okay, when we come to work in the morning, the first thing we'll do is, okay, after we started the day, we'll all go to have makeup. All of us will go to make, all the ladies will go to makeup and be just still in the ladies, right? We'll come out. Then when we come out, you know, after doing a little bit of, you know, early morning emails, we'll go and have our, you know, our early morning coffee. You know, so it was a ritual or something we'll do, or we'll go downstairs and have some juice or get smoothies before we now start work. And then we now have our meetings. So it formed a part of our culture. That was something that we just knew that it was a ritual. It was something we would do, and we looked forward to it. So even when the pandemic came, we tried as much as possible to replicate it virtually. You know, because it was a part of us, and we're like feeling somehow that how can we start our day and not do all those things? So yes, these little things, these interactions form make the culture of an organization. Another finding was that social media use in the organization has been able to make processes more effective and helps put forth the need for a people-based approach So it therefore shows that there's so much potential of its application to HRM. Then it also showed that social media can be used to redefine the traditional working ways of the organization. I mean, we've talked about this. And then it also showed that people with influence are not necessarily the people at the top. Yes, there might be people at the top, but it's the people from the bottom line that have actually garnered so much influence. And those are the people that HR needs to take note of and work with, alongside, of course, other key people in implementation and dissemination of policies and initiatives. Shawema talked about that. The transparency and democratic, because you know that I said earlier on, those influencers were nominated by their colleagues. It wasn't something that the management foisted on them. So because it was transparent and it was democratic, it helped encourage more collaboration and knowledge sharing. And people felt freer, to be vulnerable enough to share their strengths, to share their weaknesses, to explore their potentials, because they knew that, okay, we're involved in this, we're stakeholders. So, we have a part in this. Now, getting these insights provides guidance on how to make strategic HR decisions. Another implication of the use of this social media platform is, like I said, people feel more involved as stakeholders. They get a stronger sense of organizational commitment as they're proud to be part of the community. And of course, it helps better manage conflicts within the organization. There's little, I won't say no, but there's little conflict. There's more collaboration than conflict. Now, going on to the conclusion. So there were a lot of causas put forth in this book, right? Questions that were put forth in this book that the authors sought to either debunk or support. And so the authors show that technology, and I said it at the beginning and I'm re-emphasizing, technology has not come to usurp HR. Rather, it has come to enhance it if used purposely. The key is if used purposefully. So because it could lead to the social and work dimension successful coexistence, because you cannot take away the social part of your life at work. So it helps, bring that together. You see the part about that platform that talks about people even talking about car sharing. You could tell, okay, when you come on, you're able to tell, oh, this person lives in Ogudu. I live in Ogudu too. So can I hitch a ride with you? And that, you hitch a ride with someone, you form a relationship. And before you know, you're building networks, you're building relationships in the organization. It gets harder. And I give an example. There was somewhere I worked. I'm not saying that it didn't happen in other places, but in that place that we were so knit together like a family. I remember what we used to do. It was something very funny. It wasn't really technology, but we had a drive where we would post pictures. So if people got married, we would post pictures. People, had their birthdays, we post pictures. So everybody would go and see. So you had an insight into how people's personal lives were. So that brought us closer. So, if someone was having their birthday, you would be invited, So we were like a family. I know people don't like to use that word, but it helped bring that communal thing that, it made people reluctant to leave. I'm not saying that people didn't leave. Of course, at a point, your needs become, okay, why am I leaving? Am I leaving for money or whatever? But because there was so much comfort, there was so much comfort in working together. It wasn't like people were rushing out to leave the organization. That was one of the things that kept people and said, you know what, I like this place because I feel comfortable working here. So that's how much the social part of your life impacts your work. If there's a community, there's so much collaboration, if there's that thing, that brings you together, it helps, it even increases your engagement, which is what the book is saying. Another finding is that as much as there have been pessimistic views, and I know I said it earlier, when you talk about technology, everybody's like, oh my God, technology is coming to destroy, technology is coming to take our work. No, there's been pessimistic views about the advent of technology and its application in the workplace. We've been hearing this for how many years? But 30 years down the line, technology is only evolving and it's becoming better to suit our needs. It's actually just coming as a partner. It's saying, hey, don't be afraid. I'm just coming to be your partner. I'm coming to work with you. As long as you let me and you embrace me, I'll come to make your work better. So we acknowledge that the skepticism will remain. We acknowledge that the doubting Thomases will be there in spite of the beneficial effects already seen, but we can't dispute that there have been beneficial effects to technology. Now, technology is also making people rapidly adapt to change, allowing them, so you have to upskill to become effective and more efficient. So and this is also giving room for increased collaboration and teamwork. So you need to upskill to adapt. So it's either you adapt, what's the word? You adapt or you die. Then it says digital skills are neither good or bad. It just depends on on how they're used. The effects on you or the organization depends on how they're used. And we should also know that technology has its limitations, right? It's only based on the intelligence of the person, putting in the whatever is garbage in, garbage out. So there is a concern about limitations, in terms of creativity and all that, which is why it has to be used smartly, right? You don't lie down and relax and expect technology to do all the work. No, you have to put in the effort. You have to maximize it to do the work for you. And so for employees to be encouraged to maximize the potentials of a digital workplace, management has to be invested. You see that it's important for management to be a buy-in for management. If management is just there on their own and you're doing your stuff, it's going to fail. But if management is invested, then it will be a cruise. So therefore, technology is not a stumbling block. It is rather a revitalization of the organization. It's there to help the organization. So if organizations seek to adopt a people-based approach to HRM, technology will be an amazing, effective, efficient way to attain this goal. So the insights from cognitive technology will help organizations understand their employees better. If I am looking at a platform and I see I'm able to get insights from data on how my people behave or what my people want and all that, it helps me better design tools and processes for them according to their unique needs. Like I will still emphasize, don't go and do what works for A may not necessarily work for B. So make sure that you design the tools that specifically suit the unique needs of your own organization. And knowing that I have been put into consideration, an employee, when he knows that they've been put into consideration, right? Of course, it brings about better employee engagement. And so with this, I draw the curtain on this fantastic book. It turned out to really be fantastic. I know we're spent for time, so I don't know if there's going to be room for contributions, but I'll hand over to Yemi. Thank you very much for this platform to discuss this book, and I look forward to the next book. Yay.
Thank you so much, Ezinne. Thank you so much, Bola Joko. That has been really, really insightful. In 1 minute, is there anyone who would like to say something? You need to put your hands up in the next 10 or 15 seconds. You'd like to say something. Maybe there's something you want to contribute. It's amazing how a boring book can take 90 minutes to review. What if the book had been interesting? We'll have done a full day at the beach. Okay, we'll take our only comment for tonight from Oluchi. All right, you have the admin's consent to speak, Oluchi.
Good evening. Thank you, Ezinne and Sowemi, for taking us through the difficult, boring book. Okay, my contribution will be sometimes in trying to help the organization drive profitability through introducing some digital platforms or digital apps. We might encourage some we might encounter some challenges, some difficulties, some pushbacks, even with the data that we provided. So my contribution is encouragement to those who might encounter this, not to give up, but to re-strategize, look for a better time again after some period and reintroduce it, because some, especially the business owners, some business owners can be set in their ways. Like I experienced one that he asked you to draft a letter going out. You draft it, you have to print it, put it in a file in 2022. Bring it to him, he'll correct it, you go and do this thing, print it again, attach the other one. So it's not everybody that is there. That's the business owner. He likes reading it hard copy. So if you meet such, don't be discouraged, just count your steps and go back again. So far as you're comfortable working in that environment. That's my contribution.
Okay, thank you. Ezinne, you want to say something?
No, I mean, she said it. I think it was the last book we had. We said see, because it's the same thing, the same pushback that some of these other units encounter, the CFO and all that. The salesperson will go and there's a pushback, but you know what? They go back and re-strategize and come back until they get an answer. So she's really said it all. Thanks, Oluchi, for that.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to join our community, the information has been dropped in the chat box. I will just drop it again tonight or latest tomorrow morning. You will be able to watch again this session, share it with your friends and loved ones who would benefit by watching it. All right. We'll be sharing another book tonight. I assure you, this book is not only certified to be beneficial, it's also certified to be interesting. All right. Thank you so much.
Let me add something.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, let me add something. Sorry to interrupt you. We said it at the beginning, and we're going to say it again. Guys, our eyes are on you. It's not only females that read books. Guys, there must be a guy, at least one guy that must do book review this April. So I'm putting it as a challenge to all of you. You cannot tell me that you can't review a book. And I am not counting Yemi in this review, so it's exclusive of Yemi. Please, I put it as a challenge to you. You must present yourselves for a book review. And thank you so much, Showimo, for co-reviewing with me. It was amazing doing it with you. Thank you. And thank you to everyone that participated. It was fun. Thank you, Yemi.
Ezine, Oluchi said you guys do socials.
Oh my God. Guys, I would take this. So I take this as a challenge. Are you saying that our guys are not intellectual?
Challenge has been noted. Good night, everyone.
Good night.